welcome to your spiritual Reddit stories. I'm your podcast host, Olivia Jade, pagan priestess, psychic medium, healer, and facilitator. And this week, I'll be reading ghost stories from the r/realghoststories subreddit. At some point in this episode, there is a story that reminds me of one of my experiences, so I'm actually super excited to tell you guys about it. So anticipate me sharing that because it's pretty interesting. So let's get started. This was posted 3 years ago as of me recording this, and the title is It Wasn't the Pipes. For context, I was about 13 years old when it all started. I've always had vivid memories of when I was a child, remembering things as far back as 3 or 4 years old. I had just turned 14, and it was a chilly January Thursday night when we moved in a much bigger house than our last. We needed the room after all. Having 7 kids wasn't easy on my parents. My little sister Neve had an imaginary friend, Paul, but nobody thought anything of it, of course. The first night, as I was organizing my shoes and putting all my posters out in my own room to myself, she was wandering around looking at my stuff. She then said, "Paul would like your closet. He likes you." I barely gave it any notice, as she would say that stuff all the time, and apparently Paul had always lived in my closet for some reason. She was only 7, so I brushed it off. But just when I was dozing to sleep in my new bed, I heard something in the corner of my room, like a tapping or creaking noise. Then my Rottweiler sitting on the end of my bed stood up and started growling. I ignored it as I thought it was just the pipes or something, so I flipped over in my bed. I then felt the feeling of someone sitting on the end of my bed. I thought it was just one of my sisters climbing into my bed, something they did when they couldn't sleep, so I ignored it until I felt that thing lie down beside me. And in the corner of my eye, I saw a dark shadow-like hand hover over my waist, and I moved over to get a better look, as I don't like when someone's touching me as I sleep. Then it feels as if in record time it gets off my bed in less than seconds as I'm turning over. I seen nothing, of course, but then I heard my closet door open and shut loudly in the other side of my room, and my clothes hangers rattle. Oh yeah, Paul. So there were some spelling errors and grammatical errors in this, but oh my goodness, I am no stranger to stuff like this happening. And even my mom, oh my goodness, she's told me some pretty horrifying stories of feeling spirits getting in bed with her. But yeah, the shadow figure thing, feeling something sitting on my bed, on the corner of my bed, that's happened to me. Yeah, this is definitely a classic sort of like you trying to rationalize, like, oh, but I mean, I really don't blame this person though. I mean, not only are they a teenager at the time of them, at the time of this happening, but they're in a new house. So you don't know the house noises of your new house yet. You don't know what's normal. So I understand. But regardless, trying to kind of use mundane, rational reasoning to be like, oh yeah, like it's probably fine. And then for all that to happen on your first night in your new house. But I think it is very, very interesting that Paul followed them. I mean, I understand that her little sister, or this person's little sister, sorry, they did not provide their gender, their identity. They must be connected, or maybe Paul just really likes the company of the little sister, and so now he's kind of like following them. That is I wouldn't say that that's very common in my experience. Usually the spirits are attached to an object in the home or the property itself, and once you leave, they kind of stay there. They don't follow you. So I thought that was a very interesting detail. But yeah, I wonder whatever happened with Paul. This is a really, really physical kind of experience, and I've mentioned it in my other content too. The hypnagogic state is the scientific term for the place that our brainwaves enter right as we are about to fall asleep. And it's a transition point. You are extremely susceptible to paranormal and supernatural experiences. So it doesn't surprise me that they had such a physical experience, where all the stuff happened, the noises, the bed sensations, the seeing of the shadow hand. It doesn't surprise me at all that they experienced all of that while in this state. And so getting into some of these comments here, somebody said, seems like Paul doesn't know boundaries. Have you ever felt his presence before? Also, this is really well written consider writing stories. OP said, oh, thank you so much. Paul definitely does not. I felt his presence before this incident, but just thought it was my mind playing tricks with me, and this one stuck, so I thought I would make a story based on it, smiley face. And somebody else said, hey, this is super creepy. Creepy story. Maybe it was just sleep paralysis. You wake up, can't move, and see black figures and stuff. So my opinion on that, I don't think so. I know what sleep paralysis feels like, and they didn't really they just described what they saw and what they heard and what they felt. They didn't say, oh, I couldn't move. I thought it was just pipes or something, so I flipped over in my bed. And then I had the feeling of someone sitting on my bed and then laying. So, no, they were able, I moved over to get a better look, as I don't like when someone's touching me in my sleep. Yeah, no, they were not paralyzed for that. So, yeah, this is really cool. I really love when people share their experiences because this is a very real thing. And a little note about skeptics and skepticism, okay? It is healthy and important to discern and to see for yourself and judge for yourself things that are so fantastical like this, you know? At the same time, from a literal, scientific, spiritual, psychological standpoint, bringing all those worlds together into what I'm about to say, people who are skeptical are way less likely to have these experiences simply because they are not open to having them. And so there is no frequency match. Another way you can picture it is like a radio signal. You kind of have to tune into a radio station to hear it. It doesn't mean that the radio station doesn't exist. It just means that your radio isn't tuned into it. You know what I mean? So I love, though, when skeptics have spiritual experiences, because it's honestly, if you take that scientific logic that I just described, it's kind of a miracle that they have an experience like that. And then it's so cool because it almost kind of changes them sometimes. It broadens their horizons, it expands their perspective. And that's honestly a big goal of this podcast, is for me to expose you guys to these real life experiences some people have had. And I know that it's Reddit, and a lot of times it's kind of like, oh, maybe this was written by AI, maybe this is fake, but these are really unique experiences. These are more often than not real people behind these accounts. And I've had a lot of experiences. A lot of the people I've talked to have also had a lot of experiences. So I like to share them. I like to start that conversation and to recognize that there is more to reality than what meets the eye, and everybody's experience is valid, and also to recognize and respect that it's vulnerable and it's brave to share something that's kind of very not widely accepted, not widely talked about, at least right now. So anyway, let's go ahead and get into our next story that was posted. This one was also from 3 years ago, called My Continuous and Very Frightening Experience of Goatman's Bridge in Denton, Texas. Hi, for reference, I am a 24-year-old female. Okay, I'm going to start out by apologizing for not adding any photos, tangible proof, or deep history lessons here. I would appreciate if you all could not excuse me of lying or being mentally ill. Accuse me, sorry. This is 100% true. You must take me at my word, because this is still an ongoing experience in me, and I'm physically affected every day by ongoing nausea, especially when I look at the photos or talk about the history of this haunted place. I am trying my best to avoid making matters worse. I feel grueling resistance as I am typing this, and I am fighting the nausea right at this moment, so I hope you can understand. Last Sunday was Father's Day. I was with my boyfriend, my mom, and my dad, sitting at the dinner table, eating, when the topic of ghost hunting came up. My boyfriend, let's call him B, and I love this type of thing. Neither of us are particularly religious. We are a couple of open-minded, curious agnostics. So the idea that spirits could exist and possibly show themselves to us excites us very much. We had heard about this Goatman's Bridge, officially called Old Alton Bridge, from a couple sources, Friends, Ghost Adventures TV show, and other articles online. We also relatively live close to the location. Please look up the history yourself. Just Google Goatman's Bridge Denton history. I will tell you it is KKK-related gruesome violence leading to the unalivement of a successful African American that lived nearby. Every time I read about it now, I feel like I'm going to puke. So anyways, we decide to go, in all caps. My dad has never encountered a spirit before, and this place seemed to be a very popular spot for ghost hunting. We went at about 10 p.m., a prime time to explore the bridge and hike the trails with little interruption. The bridge at first was empty and seemed a bit spooky, but we didn't see anything out of the ordinary there. We then hiked a couple different trails nearby. The first one was completely fine, no activity. The second trail, we saw a pair of glowing eyes in the distance when I shone my flashlight in that direction. We all think it was a deer, though. Third trail, we came up to this very scary-looking graffiti-covered structure. It had words like, "We all pass." It had 2 pentagrams with the letters of that. Within the letters of that, there were stars across the top of it with fake blood dripping from every other one, and it also had a number of symbols and words that none of us or Google Lens could decipher. Although we all did see my nickname, Jen, written, slightly hidden, within another acronym. I forgot what it was, and I'm not going to look at the pictures right now, sorry. Later, B had dug some more online and found out that the structure is actually an altar that had been used for animal sacrifices, and is still being used in rituals by a modern group called the Dark KKK. All in all, the most exciting part about going to the place itself was me tripping over a root and bruising both my knees. Yeah, so kind of boring. The only paranormal activity that the 3 of us had witnessed was my dad expressing he felt an unexplainable quick tap on his back a few yards from the altar. So we go back to the bridge, and to our surprise, about 4 or 5 men, white, early 20s, were sitting on the spider-infested bridge, smoking cigarettes and remaining unusually silent. I honestly don't know why anyone would hang out there at midnight and not have flashlights or anything, but hey, maybe they're just kind of weird, who knows. I didn't have a very good feeling about them, though. As soon as I got in the car, I felt like I was going to puke. I was not sick with any illness. I am not sick now either. At first I believed it was and is a visceral reaction to the haunted place. Now I know it was and is something more. When we got home, I was in intense pain, unspeakable, excruciating nausea. I went to go wash my hands in the bathroom. When I looked at my reflection, I didn't recognize myself. I was looking into someone else's eyes. I met the gaze of someone violent, someone with immense hate. It was not my reflection, rather, someone or something was using my body to see through me. I know it sounds crazy, but it just gets crazier. I apologize on some of these upcoming details. I was not in control of my body or mind at this time. My memory of this part is almost dreamlike. B could see that something had changed in me. He told me to lie down because the nausea was making me lightheaded and very dizzy. I remember B asking me a series of questions. I don't remember most, but I do remember saying that I am not Jen. I remember how my hate-filled gaze felt resting on B's eyes. I remember my dog not coming over to me like she usually does. I remember telling B that I was unsure of whether he should stay or not because I was afraid I would hurt him. Physically, I felt extremely violent, to the point that I was digging my nails into my hands as hard as I could, but could feel no pain. I remember wanting to break his hand when I was holding it. I remember fixating on a wall filled with very old photos of my ancestors and having a feeling that whatever is in me is trying to learn how to become me. I still think that last feeling I mentioned is lingering in me even today. The next day, I woke up and couldn't shake the thought that I had this new body. I tried doing things I don't normally do. I was testing my pleasures, my body, its limits. I think whatever took over my body is mostly gone. It is a possibility that I may be, in fact, haunting my own psyche since that night as a reaction to try to cope. but both B and I know that something took hold of me that night, and I am paying for that every day now. By the way, I took pictures with my DSLR with some flash, some with flash, some without. In almost every photo, if you zoomed all the way in, you could see at least one red, strange-looking pixel lurking in different parts of the photo. I have absolutely no clue if this is a camera-related issue or not, but I became more physically ill the longer I look at them. Does anyone know if this is normal for taking raw night photos on a Canon Rebel T3i? The red dots showed up in both images with flash and without flash, so totally dark. So, as you know, B did more digging on Google after this whole thing, and he actually found out that women typically have had stronger paranormal experiences or reactions at Goatman's Bridge and could be related to this evil spirit named Steve. I do not wish to say any more about that, so please feel free to look it up. If anyone has a good cure for nausea besides Pepto or the devil's lettuce, that would be greatly appreciated. Also, cures for getting rid of these lingering psychological effects that resulted from that night would be nice too. Open to any discussions or questions / recommendations. Thanks. Wow. That was a doozy. That was a long one. And actually, did I reply to this person? Because when I first found this for the podcast, I feel like this was so severe that I might have said something, but we're going to go ahead and look at the comments and see. I may have given them some, I feel like on one of these more severe stories that we're going to read here today, I feel like I said something to them. So the thing about what this person might be experiencing with this is, well, I'm glad that they're feeling better now, first of all. So when you don't have a strong field integrity, sometimes, well, not sometimes, spirits will literally find holes in your aura, and they can kind of sneak their way through and affect you in different ways. The nausea is pretty, I don't want to say it's common, but it is extremely well known that is a legitimate effect of being in the presence of something that's really dark and heavy with a lot of density attached to it, okay? I think that there must have been some part of OP that this spirit, maybe it's Steve, maybe it's somebody else from this old kind of cult-like activity, whether it's a residual energy or it's a spirit, or maybe it's even one of the animal sacrifice energies, because we're all souls, we all incarnate in and as different forms. And so, I mean, that is a violation against natural law, universal law to unalive animals like that. So there is a lot going on here. There's cult-like activity, there's unalivement of animals, and who knows what the intention of that was. This group doing that, whatever their goal was for the ritual, also will contribute to this energy field that was created in this space. We do not have that information, but that is a factor that I want to reference and mention here. Another contributing factor is the symbols, of course, that were written on the site. And I would also like to mention that if they are agnostic, these people, this person who had this experience, they might not have a shielding ritual, a protection routine for their energy. So in my personal experience, I do say that that is also maybe what contributed to the openness of their field, the way that some of these spiritual energies were able to get into the holes of their aura. And so overall, it does seem like this person was affected mind, body, and soul. The mind being the not being able to really recognize herself in the mirror, and then the body with the nausea and the pain, and then the soul being this sort of these feelings of violence and feeling like she was not the only occupant in her body. And Oh my goodness, my heart goes out to her so much. That is extremely, extremely scary. Looking into some of these comments here, I'm just, like I said, I'm just glad that she feels better. We might get some updates in the comments, maybe even two. Let's see what some of these people said. I had an experience there 20 years ago. We saw a blue light cross the bridge as if someone was swinging a lantern, but no one was there. We ran to the car took a few tries to start. Speeding down the road alongside us was the blue orb going the same speed as the car. You could see it was still in the woods. During this time, the electronics of the car all malfunctioned. Windows couldn't roll, radio was barely working. Then as we passed the intersection to the other haunted bridge, my friend saw a girl standing there, but she didn't have any legs, just hovering. And the OP said, "Thank you for sharing." And okay, here's my comment. And oh my gosh, there's only one more comment after that. That's so wild, but okay, I said, "Hey, I just found this. I know you posted this 2 years ago at the time because I had made this comment a few months ago. But if you're still having issues, big or small, I'm an experienced psychic medium who's successfully handled severe cases for people and places. I have some things you could do/say to dissolve any potential residues that may be lingering at no charge. Feel free to message me. No pressure at all, though. Hope you're okay." Okay. Slightly disappointed in myself. I wish that, well, maybe I just didn't want to overstep or anything like that. I kind of wish that I would have given them some type of technique that's simple and easy, but still more effective than doing nothing. Not saying that this person is doing nothing, just like an incantation, some type of clearing or something that's like brief and easy but effective. In this comment section, it did get one upvote I can see, but the only other comment on this post is Palo Santo, black tourmaline, rose quartz to fight the violence. Yeah, I mean, rose quartz to heal the heart. I would use the rose quartz last. Open all the windows, smoke out your house, especially with some type of bundle of some kind, but please, 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 please be conscientious of whether or not it is a sacred herb to another community. Research what might be significant in your own community. I am Slavic and Italian, and so for me, frankincense resin is a huge thing, and frankincense is one of the highest frequency materials we have access to on Earth. So that's really, really cool. And I also use cedar bundles. They have lavender bundles. They have a bunch of different bundles. It's not just sage and Palo Santo. So yes, I would open up all the windows with my herb or my material of choice, smoke out the house, black tourmaline at all of the entrances of the house, including doors and windows that lead to the outside. Some type of incantation you say to yourself every single day for an extended period of time, and or receive some kind of blessing from a local priest or practitioner. And then at the very end of all of that, I would maybe take a salt bath as well. That could be really, really cool. Any way that you can cleanse your mind, body, spirit is huge and important. And then at the very end, sleep with a rose quartz to kind of heal that heart space and to heal that violence out of you. I think that would actually be very, very effective. So yeah, that is the story. I think that's all I kind of want to say. Again, my heart goes out to this person. I really, really hope you're feeling better. This is very, very scary and very, very severe. One of the most severe stories I've found on Reddit's paranormal landscape so far. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into this next one. It's posted from 3 years ago, and it's called The Old Abandoned Hospital at My Work. For context, I, male 18, just started a new job at a hospital, and there's one building built in 1867 that I got to explore recently with beautiful architecture and creepy hallways. So I asked about if any of the staff had stories, and I got 3 good ones from a member of staff. Let's call him Dave. Story 1. So one night in this building, the security break box was broken, so one of the security team members came down to check it out. He then called Dave to come and fix it. When Dave got there, the security guy was down in the car park and nowhere near the back entrance where the repairs were needed. Dave spoke to the guy who refused to go close to the building with him, so he went by himself. And as he was fixing the security break box, he heard some small tapping noises as if someone was throwing marbles or small stones at a brick wall. Dave shouted down to the security guard, "Stop effing doing that." And the guard replied that he wasn't doing anything, so Dave just carried on and again heard the tapping noises the entire time, not seeing any rocks landing or hitting any walls around him. When he finished, he went back to the security guard, and the guard asked what he was talking about earlier, and Dave just said that he thought the guy was effing about, and to that, the guard said, "Did you hear rocks being thrown at you?" And Dave said, "Yeah." Then the guard said, "That's why I'm effing down here." This specific experience has told me a lot about the staff. So, story 2, in this building, there is a basement, because of course there is, that has open stairs as you go down, and there's a long hallway at the bottom of the stairs with some pipes and other old things that were important to keep this place running. One night, Dave was down there with another colleague, and they were walking towards the end of this hallway, and Dave sees a dark, shadowy figure quickly move at the end of it and just brushed it off, being a trick of the light and or something psychological. And then his colleague asked him if he had seen it, to which Dave said, "Seen what?" The other guy that was there described the shadow figure at the end of the hallway in the same space and stated he had seen it a few times, but thought it was just his shadow. Story number 3. Another night, Dave and a different staff member were working up in the attic with only their head torches, and Dave's colleague was mucking about and asked, "If there are any spirits around, give us a sign." And immediately there was a loud crash from across the attic, and so they whipped their heads around to look at where it came from and what could have fallen. No humans and no animals, nothing to explain the crash, to which the other staff member said, "Well, I think I've said the wrong thing." Most employees will not go into that building alone or anywhere near it at night. Even security guards will miss it off their checks at night because they are too scared to go near it. This doesn't mean nobody checks in there. There are plenty of cameras around this area. Now, taking in all this info and more, would it be dumb to ask if someone would let me in at night to experience this for myself, to see if there are any truth to these stories of the ghost that haunts at night? Probably. Am I still going to ask if it's possible? Absolutely. And that's it. So in the comments, somebody asked, "So has anything been captured on the cameras?" And OP responded saying, "No, it's a really old building that's closed off to the public, and there are only cameras on the outside." What? And I have no idea how I'd get the footage anyway because I'm just a contractor. But hey, this is all just fun stories, whether or not it's real. I like the stories, you know? Somebody replied, or somebody commented in all caps, "Let me know if you get permission. We got equipment you can use." Wow, okay. This is really, really cool. This isn't the first time I've heard of, for example, my one friend, she cleans the buildings of this property as part of her job. And she did say that there is an older building on this property that she's kind of like, ooh, and she's happy when she can go there during the day and not at night because she just kind of gets a vibe there. So very, very much something that has been heard of before. I think this is very true and real and plausible. This is really, really cool. Abandoned hospital. Abandoned hospitals, asylums, any place where there were a lot of people and a lot of activity and potentially a lot of density, okay, and emotions and potential passings or transitions tends to house a lot of residual energy and or the spirits of the people that used to reside there. So that's really, really cool. That was a really cool story. And so next one is another one from 3 years ago called Strange But Not Terrifying Experience at Desert Hot Springs. So I stayed at a posh mineral hot springs called Two Bunch Palms last week to celebrate my birthday. I had a standalone villa to myself. There are no other rooms in the building. It's just this little living space all by itself. The interior consisted of a bathroom, bedroom, a living area, all open without doors between them. The first 3 nights were lovely and I slept quite well. The last night, I started feeling just weird. Like someone was watching me. It lasted for about an hour until I went to bed. I wear a sleeping mask at night because I often get insomnia, and that way if I wake up it's still dark and therefore easier to get back to sleep. So I woke up in the middle of the night as I often do, but again I felt uncomfortable like someone was watching me. I took off the mask and saw that the lamp in the living area was flickering on and off. I had definitely turned it off before bed. So I turned it off, felt a little freaked out, but decided I was too tired to really care. I went back to bed. Shortly after, I heard knocking coming from the corner of the room with the lamp. I decided it must have been something blowing in the wind and decided to go back to sleep. When I got up in the morning, I went about getting packed up to go, but after a bit, the knocking started again in the corner of the room where the lamp is. I went outside and walked all the way around the villa, checking for what might be making the knocking sound. I found nothing that could make the noise. No trees or other items that might be getting rhythmically blown against the building. No mechanical stuff, nothing. And I said, this is a standalone 1-bedroom villa without any other rooms attached. I could not explain the knocking sound. I returned to the room, the intermittent knocking continued, and I continued to have that weird feeling of being watched. I decided I was being silly and checked out. I mean, it's a posh, newish, I thought, place, not some old, crusty hotel. When I got home after the drive, I Googled the place and found a couple of employees who reported ghost stories, as well as found out that the place was a favorite of Al Capone. I'm not sure what to make of it, but my gut tells me something was off, that I was right to feel like I was being watched. Don't know. Not a dramatic or scary story, but a real one. Whoa, that is like, whoa. Okay, so this part about the sleeping mask piqued my interest, or my attention, I should say, because that is not the reason I wear sleeping masks. I wear sleeping masks because if I have to face a certain part of my room, like if I'm not facing a wall while I sleep, if I face outwards the rest of the room or like into an open closet door or something while I'm in bed, depending on my positioning, I wear the mask so that I don't get woken up and see stuff because that's happened so many times. So it's like a kind of like a protection mechanism, especially if, oh my gosh, guys, it kind of gives me a false sense of security because sometimes I still experience sleep paralysis at the very least when I'm wearing my mask. But whenever I sleep on my back, I always have the mask on because I'm not about to freaking have my eyes just fly open when I was fast asleep and see something standing in my room like so many other times. So that, I just wanted to mention that really quick. And yeah, it's so interesting that they found the history out about this building and this property later. And they walked around the whole building. There was nothing that could have been making the noise. Like, dude. And even that last story we just read about the crashing sound, nothing fell. Like, that happens a lot. And that's something that you can't make up, especially if somebody else is with you in some of these other stories. But let's go ahead and look at the comment section. I know that this story is the one that reminded me of my experience, so we're going to get into it after we get into these comments. Somebody asked, could the knocking noise have been a broken refrigerator compressor? That's so random. But OP said, no, it was in the corner of the room. The only thing there is an outlet by a side table with a lamp on it. The mini fridge is across the room and the air conditioner is in the bathroom on the other side of the suite. Yeah, so these objects that could have been making the noise were not located where the noise was being heard. And then somebody else said, well, although the detail about the face mask makes me question the legitimacy of the story, if it's true, I don't personally think it would be a ghost. It sounds more like some non-human house entity, like a bug or something along those lines. Okay, what? Okay, how can you be like, oh, I don't know about the face mask, but like maybe it was a non-human entity. Like, what side are you on? I'm sorry, it's kind of weird. What do you mean? OP actually responded, so I'm not gonna speak for them. Let's see what they say. I mentioned the face mask because the light from the lamp didn't immediately wake me up, and I'm assuming that's because my satin face mask, the kind that covers your eyes only, blocked the light. So I didn't immediately wake up when the light went on. But also, I'm going to say just really quick too, they woke up from the feeling, I'm pretty sure. They did say they suffer with insomnia. So it was insomnia, but also they felt weird, and then they took off the mask and then they saw the flashing. So OP continues by saying, "What's a boggart? Bogart? It was an unsettling experience, just had that hard to explain feeling of not being alone, even without the weird knocking in the lamp. This story is frankly pretty boring. Sorry about that. If I was prone toward fabricating a story, I would certainly make it more interesting than this, lol." I don't think it's boring. I think that's, again, whenever the paranormal interacts with us in a physical way, with sight, with hearing, whatever, that's very tangible, and that's to be noted when the paranormal is so known to be intangible. That's proof to me. And so, let me see. Another comment said, "Hey, I know I'm very late to this post. However, whenever you wake up in the middle of the night and have some sort of feeling that you're being watched, it's usually true. I know you mentioned having insomnia, but if you never woke up in the middle of the night and felt how you did like that night in the villa, then something was definitely watching you. Whether it was a spirit or an actual person, it happened. Also about the knocking, did they have a sort of rhythm, almost like a beat to it? Maybe some quick knocking and then long knocking?" And OP responded, "Yeah, I suspect the feeling of being watched is what woke me up." Yeah, so what did I say? They continue by saying, "The knocking at night, I don't remember very well. In the morning, the knocking sounded intelligent or at least intentional, like a quick 3 or 4 taps. I don't remember the rhythm. That corner of the room just felt off to me." And another comment here, "I believe you. I stayed in a haunted house 20 years ago and most recently had this exact experience of being watched in New York, UK. Everyone knows that feeling of having eyes on you. And usually you're right, and there's always someone you can look to, someone's looking at you." The grammar's kind of interesting with this. "But it's very eerie when their eyes on you and you can't see them." Yep, I can also agree with that. Being like, especially when I was a kid, you guys, I have a whole video series on my YouTube channel about what it's been like growing up as a medium, especially as a kid. Feeling like I was being watched. That feeling you get when someone's watching you times 10 is how I describe it, and how I've kind of always described it. And it's just so weird because your physical eyes can't see anything, so it's kind of like a mind effery of like, okay, why do I feel so scared right now for no reason, quote unquote? It's because you can't, it's intangible to this dimension, that's why. This is, so final comment here. Somebody actually talks about this property. So they say, "Hi, I love 2 bunch palms also. It's also ancient," they say Indian. This person says Indian, but I'm sure they meant indigenous, okay? "It's also ancient indigenous holy grounds. At the Capone house, there's a portal between the rooms. It's in the hallway. Also be super respectful of the spirits there. Holy water and sage, a good idea." Interesting. Okay, so yeah, it's also not uncommon for a place to be built upon a old burial ground. Unmarked graves, or in some cases, disgustingly, graves have been, like headstones and markers have been removed, and that's horrible and so disrespectful. And so when that happens, those places tend to have paranormal activity. This is, yes, my story. My story related to this. There was some paranormal activity at my parents' house that I experienced alongside my sister, and some things happened while my parents were home too that I described and my sister described, so it's kind of something that we all experienced. And it had been happening for a while before I found out sort of who this person was, what he looked like, and what his name was, and things like that. And it seemed like the activity, or where the spirit was attached to, was to this lamp that my parents have had for forever that was older than me. And so basically, this man looked like he was from the 1920s. He had this disheveled gray pinstripe suit with a matching hat, and his name was John. And it's crazy because his attachment to this lamp became so popular because as I learned more about him, and eventually I think I talked to him a time or two with my mediumship abilities, the activity started to become more frequent, which some people would be like, oh no, why would you acknowledge it? Like, ugh. Well, that was at the beginning of my mediumship journey, and we were having these feelings of uneasiness in this room that the lamp was in and stuff. So being who I am, I'm like, well, I want to see if maybe he needs help. Maybe he's trying to get some attention because he needs assistance, you know. Things started happening when people were over. This paranormal activity with the lamp became so well known in my friend circle that my friend's mom started referring to me as Olivia the Lamp in conversations, which was really funny. The lamp would flash randomly, without any explanation, with different rhythms and different patterns. And there was this one time where my sister had to, there were these really strict rules with her Chromebook and the Chromebook etiquette at her school at the time. And so it always had to be charged. You got in trouble if it was ever low battery in class during class time. And so she had to go downstairs in the middle of the night to see and make sure that her Chromebook was charging. And she felt someone standing over her. The outlet was low to the ground. She was kneeling. She was making sure it was being charged, and she just felt this presence behind her, and she looked behind her, and obviously no one was there. And it was nighttime, so she did the classic, running up the stairs from that. This was wild. So for me, besides the flickering, here and there, I had an experience where I was talking to my mom in her room, and her bedroom door was open, and the upstairs to my parents' house is literally just a hallway. It's my old bedroom. On the first door on the right is my old bedroom. It's the linen closet, and then it's my sister's room, and then at the end of the hallway, it's the bathroom, and then the left side is my parents' room. So I was standing there talking to her, and everyone was upstairs. My dad was out somewhere. My mom and I were in her room, and then my sister was in her own room. So it's like, okay, everybody's upstairs. Nobody's downstairs. We don't have pets or animals or anything like that. I heard footsteps coming up the stairs, and the house isn't the newest house. The house is not a newer house. It is kind of an older-ish house. And so when you walk up those stairs, they creak. You can hear people coming up. It's very, very obvious and very clear. And so as I was talking to her, I was kind of, my mom was sitting on her bed, and I was kind of standing off to the side closer to the door. And I heard these footsteps, and I poke my head out, and nobody's there. And I told her, I was like, did you hear that? Like, I heard somebody coming up the freaking stairs. And I can't remember if my sister had heard it too, because I think her door maybe was open to the hallway as well. I don't quite remember, but that was wild. I'm like, whoa, I literally heard somebody coming up the stairs so clearly. While upstairs home alone on various occasions, I could hear quiet banging and random noises downstairs as if someone was moving around. That's something else that happened a lot, and I think I have a video or two where I was sitting in my room on my bed, and I think I was able to capture the noises, but they're really quiet. You really have to turn up the volume and put your ear to the speaker to hear it. Eventually, we did get rid of the lamp because a guest over at the house broke it on accident. And the paranormal experiences stopped. And I regularly cleansed the house, so John must have been set free, honestly. So yeah, that was pretty wild. We ended up replacing and putting a new lamp in that same corner, and nothing ever happens with it. So my dad, I don't think he's totally closed off to the paranormal because he's literally had experiences. He's told me about them. And it's like really, really cool, honestly, what he's kind of been through with that. But he is kind of the voice of reason, quote unquote, the logical one to be like, oh, well, it's a circuit issue. Like, the same kind of energy of somebody being like, oh, it's house settling noises, you know? Same kind of thing. But okay, Dad, then nothing was changed except for the lamp itself, and now we have no issues. And like, yeah, that lamp was old, but it wasn't always flickering, and every time it did flicker, it was a different pattern. So it's like, dude, there was no consistency with it whatsoever. Anyway, and not only that, it wasn't just the lamp, it was those other experiences too that I described. So we're gonna go ahead and get into this next story here. This was posted 2 years ago, called My Haunting Experiences from My Childhood Home. Hi, I know this might not sound true or scary, but experiencing it yourself is terrifying. For context, we have a terraced house, so our house and our neighbor's house are together. It's 2 stories high, 2 rooms upstairs, living room, kitchen, bathroom, and a laundry room. When walking up to the house, you will go through the patio, where you will go past the living room window and to our door. We had a few windows in the whole house, but they are all in almost normal human height from outside, so people can just stare in. Anyway, that is what I would describe our house like. I grew up in that house, so only know of these stories from my parents. Thinking about it now, it's giving me goosebumps. So I was around 3 or 4 years old, and I was outside the house playing. My mom suddenly noticed that I was giggling a lot and sounded like I was talking to someone. We know everyone in town, so she didn't think too much of it. When she went outside for a quick smoke, she could see me from the patio, but she couldn't see the person I was talking to. So she called me over to her, asking me who I was talking to. I told her I was talking to an old man, and that he wanted to come inside and play with me and my toys. She thought I was talking to an imaginary friend, so she said yes, that he could, not knowing she had invited a not friendly phenomenon into our house. Because this old guy was not friendly at all. As a kid, I didn't know it, but when I grew older, I could tell he wasn't just an imaginary friend, he was an evil spirit. He would knock on our doors and windows, knock things down or move them around. He was the reason I couldn't walk down our stairs forward, only backwards. He would push me down the stairs and make loud tumbling sounds down or up the stairs. When I was 12 years old, we started sleeping in our living room for 2 to 3 years because the old guy stayed upstairs in our bedrooms. I remember I had a lot of sleep paralysis in my bedroom, where the old guy was scaring me, walking slowly towards me. He had really dark eyes, almost black, around 60 to 70 years old, open mouth, and had a raspy voice. He didn't say much when he did, but in short sentences. I can't remember them, but I know he wanted to tell me something. You'll understand at the end of my story. I remember one thing from when we slept in our living room. I had an out-of-body experience. I was watching me and my parents sleeping. Suddenly, I noticed a shadow at our kitchen door, and I noticed it was looking at my mom. Then I noticed that my mom had sleep paralysis, but this time it wasn't the old guy she saw, but a demon with a long cloak and was holding chains in its hands. It swung them like a lasso and threw it at my mom's feet. The chains locked to my mom's feet, and my mom couldn't do anything but watch it, trying to scream. The demon started to pull my mom off the couch, and she just laid motionless. As soon as she hit the floor, she could finally scream and woke up my dad and me. She couldn't talk, and my dad was so confused, so I told him what I saw, and we called the priest to cleanse our house. My mom couldn't walk on her feet for over a week after that experience. When we were going to move to Denmark from our home city, we had to get our boxes from the attic, and as we were getting them down, we found a picture of the old man, in all caps. We quickly found our Bible, and we said prayers, burned the picture, and just felt at peace. I knew he was trying to tell me something, but I still never know why. Later, I found out that the old guy was my friend's grandpa, who died years ago, but he lived in the house before us. I go visit his grave whenever I am in our old city. I don't know why I wrote it here. I just haven't told many about this. Has anyone else experienced something like this? Thank you for reading. Holy, holy, holy crapitcholius, you guys. Oh my gosh, I've heard of people finding pictures, letters, newspaper clippings in these weird tucked away places of their houses, and I'm like, I'm really, really glad that they could get that assistance from that priest. sounds like a very scary experience that their mom had with the chains. Oh my God. The fact that the whole family started sleeping downstairs because of the spirit's occupancy upstairs is wild to me. Yeah, this is kind of going back to the beginning of the story. Kids talking to no one, quote unquote. It's because their brain has not yet been tainted with projections and limitations of adult society. So their gifts spiritually, I mean, not even just gifts, really. We all have access to this, if you didn't know. You can be a psychic medium. You can be somebody that communicates with the unseen and has supernatural experiences in different ways. You just need to kind of tune yourself into that, open yourself up to that, research it, practice it. But we lose these gifts, these talents of sight and communication. I mean, I had this friend a couple years ago where she could naturally see auras and colors around people, but she would tell her older sister, and her older sister would like shut it down really aggressively and be like, those are just shadows, like that's not blah blah blah. And so because of that, what we tell kids affects them so much, you guys. We have to be so careful, because in this case with my old friend, she lost her sight. She had to try to get it back when she was an adult. Rather than, if we foster our kids' creativity, and whether it's imaginary or not, with caution, of course. We don't want to be inviting demonic old guys into our houses, of course, but imagine having a child where there is no gap in their abilities. That's honestly me, as somebody who wants to have kids one day, and as somebody who had scary paranormal experiences as a kid with no teacher and no real support or explanation. Oh my goodness. It's a dream of mine to foster within a child this ability to not have there be a break between their childhood capabilities and their adulthood, their senses, their gifts, if that's what they want. I'm not going to force anything, of course. I'm just not going to be that person who's like, ooh, the 3D is all that exists, and oh, you're stupid, and no, you don't see that. Like, I effing hate that. I hate that so much. It's very damaging. So, it literally closes their mind down, you guys. It closes their soul, their brain. Just shuts everything down, and that's not a fun time, because this is all real, and it's really, really cool, and we should recognize it as such. So, yeah, this is very common with little kids being able to speak to spirits like this. I can't even tell you how many stories I've heard of this happening. Oh my goodness, I've almost been talking for an hour, and we have 1, 2, 3 more stories left. We're gonna do it. We're gonna get it. So these comments here, people talking about sleep paralysis and like, thank you for sharing. Okay, that's really it. So we're going to the next story. And I think I remember this one. This one was posted 2 years ago, called Growing Up in Scotland. I grew up in a large old house in rural Scotland during the 1980s. The house had a long, steep footpath from the gate to the house, up a slope too steep for a car. We used to have milk delivered between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. by the local milkman. Oh my goodness, milkmen. But after a while, they stopped delivering to the doorstep, choosing to drop the bottles at the bottom gate. My mom asked why, and the milkman said this lad was scared of the gardener. We didn't have a gardener, and my mom didn't push back or question it, simply putting it down to a lazy milkman's lad, say that 5 times fast, or them wanting to speed through delivery. A few months went by, and my brother had a friend over to play. My friend told my mom that Sandy's grandpa is in the front garden. He's just standing there with his fork, not saying anything. My mom wondered who it was, walked around the house, saw nothing, asked what he looked like, and had a description of a man with a white beard, tweed bonnet, torn tweed clothing, and trousers held up by a tied string. Mom thought it sounded like the village alcoholic and mentally diminished man who did odd jobs known as Billy. Everyone knew Billy. And my brother's friend said no, Billy doesn't have a beard. And my mom said, of course he doesn't. Must be someone else. Other than the beard, this was a good description of Billy. Mom thought nothing more. About 6 months later, we had swapped to a new dairy delivering to us from a town about 10 miles away because Mom was fed up with collecting milk from the gate. After a few weeks, there was a smashed milk bottle on the doorstep, and then they stopped delivering, same as before. My mom phoned up to speak to them, and they said they'd speak to the lad doing the run, an 18-year-old. He told them he was scared by the old man gardening and was sorry for smashing the bottle, but he was startled him by standing over him. This time, my mom asked what he looked like, and he said the same description my brother's friend gave. Old man with beard, wear a cap and old tweeds. There are, of course, lots of plausible explanations, but it is the one thing I can't explain because the milkmen wouldn't have known each other, and my brother's friend, who was about 10, wouldn't know the milkmen either. There was no other incidents in the 15 years we lived there after that. My dad was a local doctor and ex-military man, being very much the scientist, even set up little trigger traps with fishing lines and tent pegs to see if they would be disturbed by someone passing through the garden, but they were never triggered. No idea if it was an actual old man who gardened or whatever. I'm not religious and don't believe in fairies, but this is the closest I come to it. Yeah, so fae activity is very, very high in Scotland and Ireland especially, because that's where a lot of those folkloric stories come from. But oh my goodness, this is wild to me. Those people that didn't know each other, couldn't know each other, different ages even, talking about and describing the same person. Okay, there aren't really any comments on this post, so we're going to go ahead and get to the next one, the next story. We just have 2 more left here, you guys. Story from 3 years ago called House I Grew Up In Was Haunted. Okay, so these are my experiences of when I was growing up in a house so blatantly haunted my friends only ever stayed over once. Might as well start with the daily occurrences. For context, the house was raised, so we had garage and basically storage under the living space at ground level, so no animals walking on the ground and making noise in the house and stuff. So we had the footsteps walking down the hall when there was only me in the house, the pantry door being open every morning. Dad would be up at 4 a.m. to get ready for work and it would be open, so he'd close it and blamed it on me for some time. Okay, so on to the more wild stuff. I was hanging out with a mate of mine and we made our way back to my place, and I realized I didn't have a key, so I asked him to just wait at the front door and I'd go to the back door. We never bothered to lock the back door because we had a Neo-Mastiff. That's a breed of dog, for those who don't know. So I went around back, walked up the stairs and opened the door into the kitchen, and directly in front of me was the T-intersecting hallway and a shadow projected onto the wall. So the first sun was a solid 90 degrees to the side of where the shadow could be mine. Second, it was standing full height from the floor, and as I moved, it didn't. So I froze, and my mind was processing what I was seeing. It turned and bolted towards the living room and the front door. And yes, I both heard and felt the footfalls. So in that moment, my mind shifted from shadow to intruder, and I run after it. I'm talking like 2 meters across the kitchen and about 3 to the living room. And I remember my friend was at the door waiting for me, so I just make for the door and realized there was nobody around. I opened the door and told my friend there might be someone hiding here, so help me check. Nothing. Short one this time. Sitting at the computer at about 1 to 2 a.m. having a crank, felt a hot breath blow across the back of my neck, jumped out of my skin with that one. I have 2 younger sisters, and I was watching TV with one of them in the living room, and decided I had enough and was going to bed. So I got up, said goodnight, started walking to my room, and at the end of the hall, parents' room with mirror not facing the hall but visible from it, was a young girl in white PJs, and I thought it was just the youngest sister and gave it no more thought. For about 3 more steps till I reached her doorway, and she was sitting there playing Naruto, a Naruto game on the old PS2. That's when I looked back up the hall, and it was empty. I remember muttering, "Damn it, Bob." At this point, we had long since started calling the ghost Bob, just so we had something to call it. The fated friends, night over. Not much happened for most of the night till we decided that it was bedtime. We were 19 at the time. Anyway, it was the following morning when I got up and went to the living room where my mate had slept, and he looked like hell. Our lights had an afterglow function, so you could see for a few minutes after turning them off. Well, apparently about an hour after I'd buggered off to bed, the lights clicked twice, and the blue glow kicked on, and that stirred him awake, thinking one of us was up. Then the front door started rattling in the frame, like someone was outside pushing and pulling on it. That eventually stopped, and not long after, he heard the footsteps going from the door, down the hall, and back for some time. He said he pulled the blanket up over his head. Yep. When the door started banging and wasn't game enough to pull it down to see what was walking around. He flatly refused to stay a single night ever again in that house. This is just a snapshot of the shenanigans that we experienced in that house, but they are also the most memorable. Yep, that specifically, the pulling of the blankets over the head, I call that a blanket tunnel. I've always called it that ever since I was a kid, because basically I would turn over on my side facing the wall, because like my beds are usually pressed up against corners. And so I would face the wall and then put the blanket around the back of my head and like kind of wrap it around to where only my, there was like a little hole that I could breathe through poking out. And so, yeah, this guy, it's very much also that logic. It reminds me of that one Vine, you guys, where there's that one guy and the kid is in bed, or the person pretending to be a kid, and they have the covers up and they're just peeking. They're peeking past them, and the guy with the weapon is trying to come in, and he's like, move your covers so I can unalive you, and then he like walks away in like a huff. That's like, covers provide a sense of security and safety. I can totally relate to that. And also the fact that they saw the spirit, but then whoever they thought it was actually in another room doing something else. That is also something I've heard. Some type of similar looking spirit, or maybe even a spirit that's full on impostoring somebody, being an imposter for somebody. That is pretty scary. I've heard some stories about that, when it's not actually the person. So yeah, this is cool. I wonder if there are any comments, people just saying, oh, it's creepy. We need a story arc where this guy becomes friends with Bob. Also, this is why we ran Usain Bolt, I don't know if that's an anime reference or something, to our beds after shutting the lights off when we were kids. I occasionally still do that. Muscle reflex kicks in. Yeah. I think we're ready for the final story, you guys, right? So, posted 3 years ago, called Ghost in the Parkway. Just 5 days ago now, I was driving home from work around 9 to 10 at night, and right through this wooded parkway was my house. A creek runs down on the right side of it. It's actually a very beautiful spot, but on this night I believe I saw a ghost darting into the woods near the creek. It presented itself like a glowy white humanoid figure, and it almost appeared to have been wearing a dress. I thought it might be an animal, but it was much too tall and very much looked like an almost human. What was weird about it was that it was pitch black outside and the figure was glowing. It didn't scare me much, but I did stop the car to stare into the woods and there was nothing. I came home, told my family about it and such. It wasn't such a huge deal. As I said, it didn't scare me and it seemed pretty passive. However, my sister said she had seen the same thing in the damn near same spot 2 years ago. But yesterday, the parkway was flooded with police, right across from the high school baseball field and near the woods right where I saw my ghost. It turns out they found, I don't know what I can say, they found the remains, there you go, of a 50-year-old woman down there through the woods close to the creek. It was her skeletal, and her ID was right next to her. It begs the questions, how long was she down there, a place where kids walk home from school all the time that I drive past every day? How did she end up there? They're still investigating as it was just discovered. I have no choice but to believe that she was the ghost my sister and I had both seen. Super, super freaky, especially considering it's just a short walk down the road from my house. I'm talking less than a mile. I hope she gets her piece. Wow, there's a really long comment here, but they say, that's really amazing. I've had my own encounters throughout my 68 years, and I do believe that some people remain behind after they've passed. I don't know if it's because they don't know they've passed or they've had unsettled business, which could definitely include your situation for this particular woman, or they just don't want to move on, whatever moving on is. Okay, I'm going to stop here and just comment really quick on that. So there are a couple different reasons why spirits remain. And all those reasons are true, are valid. So the overarching theme is fear of the unknown. It's so sad because some of the religions here on this earth are very like, you're a sinner, you're bad if you do XYZ, if you don't do XYZ, like, you will be damned to hell forever, basically. And I have beef with that because that's what keeps people stuck. And they're afraid that if they move on or go towards the light, that they're actually going to be met with violence and like eternal hellfire or whatever the F, and that's not true. So part of my job as a medium actually is to answer people's questions, to call in their guardian angels, and to be like, you are not going to some horrible place, I promise. Like, you're not bad, you're not terrible, like, you are forgiven, nothing else needs to be done, it's okay. I like talk them through their anxieties and their worries, and that's what gets them to ascend. And so when it comes to the unfinished business bit, it's like if they feel the need, they need to protect their family, or if they passed in a very kind of violent way, whether it was via some type of thing that was done to them, right? That could also give them this sense of unreadiness, this sense of, oh my gosh, I didn't want this to happen, which my heart goes out to them. That makes sense. And so another part of my job is to kind of be like, for the family protection thing, once you ascend, you can go anywhere. Ascension is just the removal of the tether to pain on this plane from their incarnate life. And so when I tell them that brings them a lot of comfort of like, oh, I don't have to leave my family forever. No, you don't. Ascension is merely you letting go of the pain and the lower densities and the emotions that are keeping you trapped, basically. Yeah, I just wanted to say that. Yeah, oh my gosh, my voice is tapping out, you guys. It's time for the end of the episode. Thank you so much for listening, for joining me here. New episodes are coming out on a regular basis. I'm currently scripting my other ones. And be sure to check out the show notes because there's a bunch of goodies in there with the work I do on other platforms and things like that. And wishing you a wonderful rest of your day. I will see you in the next episode.